Hello, I'm Tony Robinson. Welcome to Wrestling with the Big One. Over the last few weeks, we've been looking at some of the stories that Jesus told in his lifetime. And these are the ruins of the kind of place in which he'd have learned and developed those stories. A synagogue. A synagogue wasn't just a place where Jews went to worship, it was also a school and a place where they met to discuss various thorny issues of politics and religious law.
How much did I have in traveller's checks?
80 quid.
That's what I thought.
As you can probably see, the seating was on benches that went all the way round the walls. And though the elders spoke from the middle of the room, this kind of seating plan encouraged questions and comments from the congregation. You can imagine...
I've only got 70.
Look, I'm doing my piece to camera.
I can see that.
What do you mean?
Well, you were walking the way you always walk when you're being filmed.
I was not. You can imagine it would have been a much more informal and argumentative atmosphere than Christians are used to in their churches, with people quoting little bits of scripture and offering interpretations and explanations and telling little stories or parables to illustrate their stop rustling.
I've lost one tone, I really have.
Look, we go through this every time. It's totally pointless. You know it'll turn up. So, Jesus didn't actually invent the idea of parables. They've been around since the time of the Psalms. And some of the ones he told weren't new ones, they were old ones that he'd revamped and given a little added twist to. But Jesus' brilliance lay in the way that he was able to take ordinary, mundane events and transform them into challenging spiritual teaching. Blakey, you're in this bit, come and do your thing.
It's all right for you, it's not your money.
Take the parable of the lost coin. Maybe Jesus told it in a place like this. After all, he was a rabbi, so he'd have been a regular guest speaker at synagogues like this one. What we do know is that the religious intellectuals were attacking him for mixing with rough people, non-religious people, prostitutes and the like.
I bet someone's nicked it. You can't trust anyone.
But Jesus was a great champion of those kind of people. As far as he was concerned, God loved everybody, and everyone could enter into an intimate and loving relationship with God. And if they were prepared to have a go at that, then God would be really pleased, no matter what they'd done. And it was with this in mind that he told the parable of the lost coin. Blakey.
What?
The lost coin.
Oh, yeah. There was this woman, right? And she had 10 silver coins and she lost one. And she turned the lights on and she hoovered the whole house and looked everywhere, looked in the hoover bag. And eventually she found it, which is more than I've done. And then she was so happy she phoned all her mates and said, "Oh, it's amazing, I'm over the moon, I found me lost coin."
Fine. Thank you for your stunning contribution. Now, it may be that this lost coin was just ordinary money, but there is another possible explanation. It was the custom at this time for married women to wear their dowries as ornaments sewn into headdresses like this one. So Jesus' audience would have imagined a poor woman, her dowry was only 10 drachmas, which wasn't very much, and she was celebrating having found something which represented not just her wealth, but her whole relationship with her husband. It might only have been a small coin, but it mattered to her passionately.
Why do you keep wandering off?
Because it's television.
I've got it.
Good.
I found it in my shoe. I put it there earlier in case I was mugged.
Fine.
It's stupid, really. Look, it's all crumpled up.
So you're with me now, are you?
Yeah.
So you might concentrate a bit, project a little, give them a bit of your personality?
I couldn't do that as well as you, Tone.
Thank you.
If you give them any more of your personality, they'll choke on it.
Okay.
Nothing. You're doing great. Carry on.
Good. It was directly after the parable of the lost coin that Jesus told one of his most famous stories.
The prodigal son. That's me, isn't it?
Too right.
Right. So there were all these really smart university types sitting on these benches and they were just waiting for Jesus to slip up, right? You don't mind me setting the scene, do you?
No, you go ahead.
They were dead keen to prove him to be something two-faced, a sort of early Jimmy Swaggart, right? So, why are you always mixing with girls on the game, they asked. And why do you always knock about with terrorists and collaborators and people who break our laws, time and time again? And the whole room went quiet, and Jesus said, "Over to you, Tone."
Right. There was this man, and he had 2 sons. And the younger one said to his father...
Do I look a wally in this, or what?
No, you don't. What did he say, Blakey?
He said, "Dad, you know when you die I get half your money? Well, can I have it now instead?"
And his father divided his wealth between his 2 sons. I'm the other one, see?
You don't look a wally either.
Thank you.
That's Coco. Coco doesn't say anything in this, do you, Coco? Thanks. Why is that, Tone?
Well, wouldn't look right artistically.
And we can't afford to pay him, right?
Look, get on with it.
Thanks, Dad.
So a few days later, the younger son got all his things together and set off for a foreign land. Within a very short while, he fell into bad ways and lost all his father's inheritance through loose living.
Yeah, loose living. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But in the original, it probably meant an incurable dose of the clap. Now, you can imagine how that part of the story would have gone down with the religious types. See, this is pretty tough stuff, isn't it? Now, when the prodigal son left home, he wasn't just taking the money. It meant that he and his kids would be cut off from the family forever. He'd completely burnt his boats. And if this didn't work out, he was going to get in some pretty serious trouble.
Hello.
And pretty soon, he'd spent everything. And there was massive inflation, and no one had got any jobs, and he started to get desperate. Until eventually, he got a bit of part-time work feeding pigs for $1.50 an hour.
Religious types would have loved that, wouldn't they? Nice Jewish boy feeding the foreigners pigs. It's a real top job, that one.
And he was so hungry, he'd happily have eaten the swill he was supposed to feed to the pigs, and not one single person was prepared to help him. And one day, he pulled himself together and said,
My father's servants have got more food than they know what to do with, and I'm stuck out here starving to death. I will arise and go to my dad. Say, Dad, I'm sorry. I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Please, take me back as one of your hired labourers.
And you know what happened next, don't you? The prodigal son came back, his father was over the moon and said, No, I'm not going to treat you like a servant, you're my son. Let's kill the fatted calf and have a party.
That's Coco's line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where is he?
I had to let him go. He does the night shift down the McDonald's in Bethlehem.
I've got a question.
Yeah?
Oh, how come you're at this party? You're supposed to be act off.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So, the older brother was really angry and he refused to go into the party, and he said to his father, Look, I've served you faithfully for 7 years. I've never once disobeyed you, and you've never thrown a party for me. And he comes back after bonking his way through Soho, and you kill the fatted calf.
And Coco said, Son, you are with me always. All that I have is yours. But your brother was dead and is alive, was lost and is found.
It's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oi, I thought you were a vegetarian.
I am. This is a tomato. Actually, I've always thought the elder brother got a really raw deal in it.
Yeah, but you've got to remember who Jesus was having a go at. There are all these lawyers and religious people, right, who are really uptight, feeling really threatened, just like the brother in the story. And Jesus is saying to them, look, God's love isn't a competition. He loves everyone, no matter what they've done. And you ought to do the same thing too. You should love muggers and crack addicts and girls on the game, everyone. It's a hard message, dead subversive, really. See you next week.
Yeah, see ya. Tom, what did I do with that traveller's cheque?
It's in your pocket.
No, I've lost it. I can't find it.
Well, you had it in your shoe last time.
No, I took it out.
Oh, come on. Look, this goes on about 5
Why
times
do you lose
a
your
day.
temper
What do you
whenever...
mean, why do I lose my...